Afrikili family and Global PAC Nation, welcome to the Global PAC Show, presented by Tony Fumunsimba. On today's show, we'll discuss three topics. First of all, we knew that the Trump administration was advancing an America First policy. Well, lo and behold, it seems like we've gone from America First to colonialism and land mass acquisition. Because last Friday, Vice President JD Vance gave a press conference in Greenland in the Pituffik Space Base, and if there was ever any doubt, it appears ever so clear that this administration is set on acquiring, if not colonizing, a piece of land that right now is under control of Denmark. So that is one thing we will discuss. Second topic, well, Ronny Jackson, the congressman from Texas, came back from a visit in March where he visited several countries in East and Central Africa, including the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Well, upon his return, he issued a scathing report blasting and lambasting the leadership of the DRC, saying that although that country could be the richest country in the world, given its natural resource and natural wealth, it is so blatantly mismanaged. And so he blamed a total failure from the leadership. Well, he says that something has to be done. What that is, well, we will discuss it. And last but not least, given that we've always said that business is an essential part, if we want the global PAC to reassume control and take ownership of its destiny, business has to be developed. Business titans have to be advanced. We need massive industries to be developed. Well, unfortunately, when it comes to one of the biggest business titans in Africa, Aliko Dangote from Nigeria, who also happens to be the richest black man in the world, well, he's been facing quite a lot of challenges. And instead of getting local support, it appears that he's been facing a lot of headwinds from within his country, from within the continent, that are making it hard for him to advance. Well, we say that as a global PAC, something certainly needs to change, and we need to take ownership of our economic destiny, and we certainly need to ensure that we support businessmen and women to ensure that the continent rises up and assumes its rightful place and maximizes its potential. There you have it. So those are some of the topics we'll discuss today, that and more. So let's fasten our seatbelts, let's dive in, and let's get to work. Hello, once again, Afrikili family and Global PAC Nation. Such a pleasure for me to be once again in front of you on this live. And today we are Monday, March 31st, last day of March. Where has this month gone? I don't know. It's been flying. Well, always a pleasure to be in front of you. Thank you to all of you who support our concepts, our live. Thank you to all of you who subscribe to this channel. Much appreciated. For those of you who have not done that, let me just ask you to take a moment and click on the subscribe button. Only takes a second, and you can help this platform grow so that together we can be part of the conversation and ensure that we reach the goals and objectives that we've set for ourselves in 2025. So thank you in advance for that. And also remember to check out our website, www.afrikili.com, for past editions of our blog, for those of you who prefer reading. And also future blog posts will be delivered directly into your email address if you enter your email on the website. Thank you very much. Feels like it's been a while since we did a live. And apparently, recently, every time I come on, I seem to be saying that, well, issuing apologies for missing out all the lives. It's been a lot of travel. Last month, as you know, it was traveling throughout Europe, and this past week within the United States. But I am back. But I think going forward, when I go on these trips, I've decided to figure out a way. Nowadays, if you have an internet connection, you can certainly do a live is shown almost anywhere in the world. So going forward, that's the decision I've taken. So I'll just find some kind of a camera so that as I'm not here, as I'm overseas, instead of interrupting the show for weeks at a time, either overseas or within the U.S., just grab a camera so that we continue the momentum going. So, because I realize that once we interrupt our lives for a couple days or a week, a couple weeks, obviously there's a certain momentum we're losing. So that's a commitment I'm making to you. And of course, remember to subscribe. Okay, let's jump straight into it. Topic number one, JD Vance, who is either vice president or maybe president number 2 or president number 3 in Donald Trump triumvirate, with the other being Elon Musk. So it seems like we have a multiple presidency here, right? With 1, 2, 3 people, who knows? But anyway, JD Vance, who seems to be the attack dog of Donald Trump, decided to go to Greenland. If you've been following U.S. policy or U.S. political news, you know that there was some kind of an uproar or something that people deemed as provocation when last week it was announced that JD Vance's wife would travel to Greenland. And this comes after, Donald Trump has been saying that, they need Greenland, they need to take over Greenland. So there is a bunch of provocation there. Well, after a lot of the uproar, some people within the U.S. security apparatus just saw that it might not have been as good of an idea to have JD Vance's wife go within Greenland. She was supposed to attend a dog sled show or something like that. They said, no, it would not be a good idea. There might be a lot of negative sentiments that might be expressed. So instead of having this massive photo op, within Greenland, well, they ended up reducing the scope to just a military base. And so as a result, JD Vance himself ended up going and joining the team. And so last Friday, he gave a press conference. And oh my God, I mean, I was, as I say, traveling, but I was following it, and I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm not sure if you guys actually paid attention to that or not. So I'm just going to read you some of the remarks. And honestly, it felt to me that it's as if we're back in the era of colonialism in a way, right? Where you had Western powers, whether it was Spain, Portugal, or something, and they would essentially send their people around the world and to go and plant flags. And then once the flags were planted, they would take ownership of that land, regardless of the local reality, regardless of the fact that you had inhabitants in those places. I mean, that's really the sentiment I had by listening to this. I mean, it was out of this world, quite frankly. And if you haven't heard that and you're interested with those matters of geopolitics and so on, I highly recommend you can just go online and do research for JD Vance's PR press conference of last Friday in Greenland. But here I'm going to just read you some of the summaries, right, from The Guardian, which is a magazine and newspaper. You can find it online. So here there's an article from The Guardian. So this article was dated back from Friday, March 28th. So that's the day JD Vance made his press conference. So here's a bit of a summary of that. So here it says that, and by the way, if you want to read the same article, if you go online, the article is called JD Vance Says U.S. Needs Control of Greenland to Fend Off China and Russia. Now that's the excuse that's been given, which quite frankly is pretty out of this world, as I say. But anyways, so here are some of the lines from that article. It says, under increasingly strained relations between the White House in Greenland and Denmark, the U.S. Vice President said during a visit to Pituffik Space Base on Friday, quote, "Our message to Denmark is very simple. You have not done a good job by the people of Greenland. You have underinvested in the people of Greenland, and you have underinvested in the security architecture of this incredible, beautiful landmass." Fascinating. This is somebody, keep in mind, he is saying this in a country that is not his, although he said it within the U.S. base. And as you know, or maybe you don't know, it's when countries agree to have, like, say, a US base or any other foreign base on their territory, amongst those bilateral agreement is that the land provided for, whether it's an embassy or a military base, essentially falls out of the jurisdiction of that local country. So, in other words, this US base in Greenland, although Greenland is under the jurisdiction of Denmark, the base is actually controlled by the United States, right? So, in a sense, as JD Vance is making those statements, although he is physically in Denmark, in Greenland, which is controlled by Denmark, but he is within a U.S. military base, which in a sense he is on U.S. soil. So, so no matter what happens, typically the local countries would not have jurisdiction or even the authority to just come and barge into such a piece of land, because again, it is considered a territory. That's when the countries sign agreements between themselves. The same would apply with an embassy or something along those lines. Anyhow, so the article continues. Speaking alongside U.S. troops, as well as Donald Trump's national security advisor, Mike Waltz, who is at the center of the Signal Message Group security breach. Also, Waltz's wife, Julia Nushewat, and U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright, and the Senator for Utah, Mike Lee. He said the Trump administration's argument was not with the people of Greenland. It was, he said, with the leadership of Denmark, which he accused of having underinvested in Greenland and its security. So let me just end up there. I'm not going to read the whole article. I mean, if you want to read it, feel free. You can go online and find it. But the overarching point here is that, it's just amazing, right? Now, remember when Trump came and when he ran during his campaign, it was all America first, America first, America first. There was never any indication of wanting to go out and acquire different landmass. But now there seems to be a shift in that policy, seemingly out of nowhere. First, we had Canada, and Trump has been pushing that ludicrous idea of Canada becoming a 51st state of the United States. All right, which is causing so much anger if you followed like some of the sporting events when a U.S. team plays a Canadian team and the U.S. national anthem is played in Canada. You hear a lot of boos and so on. So there's a lot of animosity that those comments by Donald Trump have caused within Canada. So we had Canada becoming the 51st state. We had the Gulf of Mexico being renamed the Gulf of America. And now we have Greenland. And so we have this individual, again, in Greenland, attacking the local government. That's... I don't know how you qualify that. Now, can you imagine that? Just look at it this way. Puerto Rico. Imagine if you had a vice president or a representative of a different country come into Puerto Rico and start lambasting the U.S. leadership for its mismanagement or underinvestment in Puerto Rico, and then saying that we need to take over Puerto Rico. Now, granted, this other country would most likely not have a military base in the U.S., because that's the one thing, right? The U.S. has bases around the world, but obviously, the U.S. has not agreed to have any other country put its base within its country. The same goes for China, France, and so. I know that's just the way it goes. But can you imagine? So say a Chinese diplomat visits Puerto Rico and issues statements like that. Can you imagine the fire, the storm that such statements would make? But yet here we have, President JD Vance. I said president because obviously he seems to be another president who seems to go around the world, issue all these statements, advancing some sort of superiority and just claiming that territory and lambasting the leadership. And then on the back end, Donald Trump also made a press conference that same day where he was very clear, unambiguous, saying that we need Greenland and we will get Greenland. So he's advancing an argument that it's for a world peace because you have Russia and China that are taking positions in that area, and the area is not far off from the U.S. and blah blah blah. No matter what the reasoning is, the fact that you have this statement to me is an insult in a way for the Danish leadership. And as a matter of fact, the Danish prime minister responded, the Danish foreign minister, I'm sorry, who's called Lars Loke Rasmussen, was very angry by the tone taken by JD Vance. And so he went on X, formerly Twitter, on Saturday. So the following day after JD Vance made his statement. So you have the Danish foreign minister, Lars Rasmussen, who said, I quote, "We are open to criticism, but let me be completely honest. We do not appreciate the tone in which it is being delivered." And so he continues by saying, "This is not how you speak to your close allies. And I still consider Denmark and the United States to be close allies." And of course, so he responded, but you can obviously see here even in the tone of the response, even though clearly the government of Denmark is displeased, but it is not like just a staunch condemnation saying that, all right, this is it, this will not fly. And this speaks to the different powers. The US is still the number one power in the world, although Denmark is not a small country. I mean, it's a fairly significant country in terms of its GDP and so on, which last I checked had a GDP of over $400 billion. But still, the US is still a big partner. The US still has way more power economically speaking, militarily speaking. So this shows you that, yeah, you have international law, you have all these, system that has been put in place, but whoever has the most money, whoever has the most military force, ends up getting away with whatever they want. Like, nobody's going to punish the US here for making statements like that. And it just goes to show you that the Global PAC, I mean, you can talk all you want. If you want to be respected on a global scene, you need to have an economic muscle. So I'm really curious to see how this situation will unfold, right? With all this uproar, what will end up happening with Greenland. But yeah, it's, as I said when I started, it's just fascinating to me how, we went from an America First policy that was constantly communicated by Donald Trump during the campaign to now wanting to invade other mass lands and just take over mass lands, take over Canada, take over Greenland. Let's see what happens in the future. I mean, I don't foresee Greenland just becoming a U.S. territory anyways, but I foresee a lot of tension and strife going forward. And I don't think the EU will just lay down and let such a thing happen. So, all right. So that was topic number one. So perfect segue. I mentioned the Global PAC. Well, let's go straight into the Global PAC. As you know, this show really, our main mission, although I've just spent how many minutes since we started here? I've spent the last 18 so minutes talking about Greenland, Europe, and so on, which has nothing to do with the Global PAC. But it was to make a point that if you want to be respected, laws are there, but those laws are broken by the most powerful nations. And the US is the most powerful nation today. So if nations of the Global PAC want to also be respected, it's not about just relying on some laws or just, expressing your uproar. No, it's about being strong militarily and having the finances to fund that and being strong economically. So let's segue into that. In another fascinating turn of event, you have Ronny Jackson. So Ronny Jackson is a U.S. representative who is representing I believe it's a 13 Congress. Let me make sure I don't say something wrong here. Yeah, he represents Texas 13 congressional district, which is part of North Texas, going towards Denton and so on. So Ronny Jackson was visiting many countries in Central Africa and East Africa, and so upon returning from his visit, so he issued a statement recounting the events and just summarizing what he saw in front of a Congress committee. So he did it last week. Well, in an interesting, I would say, twist, when he visited the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which, the big country in Central Africa, second biggest country in Africa, his visit was announced by the presidency, through its communication channel, that, yeah, we have a special envoy of Donald Trump in the Great Lake region who's coming to the DRC. He's coming as a result of our diplomacy. That's the presidency or the president's office of the DRC that was communicating that way. It was officially communicated that, based on their lobbying effort, pitching a deal to have exclusive mineral partnership with the US and so on, as a result of all that effort, Trump sent a special envoy into the DRC. Well, that was very quickly debunked. And the US government issued statements saying, no, Ronny Jackson was not a special envoy of Donald Trump in the region, which was, oh my God, I would say a diplomatic spanking, unfortunately, a diplomatic humiliation to the presidency of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And so the communication team within the presidency did not look good at all on that episode. It was very, very unfortunate. But nevertheless, so Ronny Jackson goes, and I'm going to read you just a bit of a summary of some of the things he said. And I was, it's one of those things, if you can put your head in dip in the sand out of shame, you would do that, because some of the things he said, and we will comment on that. But let me just tell you some of the things he said. You can find this on Reuters, the news outlet online and so on. So here's a summary from Ronny Jackson. So here's what it says. So Jackson, who had just returned from a visit to several countries in the region, including the DR Congo, Rwanda, the Republic of Congo, Burundi, and Uganda, shared his observations on the security, economic, and governance challenges facing Eastern DR Congo. So his testimony shed light on the region's instability, mineral wealth, governance failure, and the broader geopolitical implication of the crisis. So this was an introduction of Ronny Jackson, again, the U.S. Congressman Ronny Jackson's statement. Now, here are his statements. Here's what he said. It's a very long statement. I'm not going to read the entire statement. It's too long. I will just read, say, about maybe 2-3 paragraphs, right, to give us an idea, and then you can find the rest. But this will give you a sense of where his comments went. So here's what he said. He said, on Sunday, I returned from a visit to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC. During my trip, I also visited Rwanda, the Republic of Congo, Burundi, and Uganda. I met with the presidents of the DRC, the Republic of Congo, Burundi, and Rwanda. So he met with 4 presidents. So he continues saying, I left the region both encouraged and discouraged. There is immense potential for peace and stability, yet ongoing conflict and bloodshed persist. The natural resources in the area are worth tens of trillions of dollars, making the DRC one of the richest countries in the world, at least on paper. However, for this potential to be realized, Eastern DRC must become a region where safety, security, and foreign investments are prioritized. When I say everyone, I mean DRC, Burundi, Uganda, and Rwanda. Right now, Eastern DRC is essentially ungoverned, akin to the wild, wild East. The government in Kinshasa lacks the resources and capacity to control the region. In reality, it has become just another player in the scramble for resources. Everyone is exploiting the area. Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, all taking minerals without oversight or regulation. Let me end up there. To put it in context, right? I mean, so obviously for somebody like me who originates from the DRC, as you know, if you follow this platform, this is something that is very dear to my heart. But I'm not taking an emotional stance here. This is a country that supposedly is governed by a president who has been in place for about 6 years now. And you have a representative of Congress who comes to the country, only spends a few days, and then upon leaving, he says things such as, right now, Eastern DRC is essentially ungoverned. Okay? The government in Kinshasa lacks the resources and capacity to control the region. I mean, this is a an unbelievable condemnation. When, as far as incompetence in terms of lack of leadership, lack of governance. So you're saying that there's a government that has been in place now for 6 years, and yet telling you that Eastern DRC is essentially ungoverned. So when the latest episode of this war started, I made, I think, 2-3 shows back then, kind of delving into the root causes of this issue and so on. But look, folks, let's be serious here, okay? And this is speaking to us, to the Global PAC, Black folks, the global Pan-African community. Enough is enough, right? Yes, we have for the longest blame foreign multinationals. We've blamed foreign interests that are incentivizing instability. But we cannot always hide behind us. We have a big part of responsibility here. We have a government, again, that has been in place here for 6 years. It does not take that long to train a military force. As some of you know, I have spent a bit of time in my previous life in the military. When it comes to the US, how long does it train to train a standard soldier? It certainly does not take you 6 years. Even if you look at the top readiness forces, whether we look at special forces, Navy SEALs, and so on, in the US, it takes about 2 years. So how is it that we have a government that has been in place for 6 years that is not willing to do everything possible to stabilize its territory? Because let me tell you, it's not by lack of resources. So when Ronny Jackson here says this government lacks resources, I really don't think it's in terms of, say, financial resources. Because one thing is true, corruption is rampant in that region. I can tell you that a lot of this government official, as a matter of fact, Ronny Jackson, if you read his full statement, he actually highlights the level of corruption, how there's this clientelism, how government officials are benefiting, plundering from these resources instead of utilizing them for the benefit of the country. So this total failure of leadership is really a lack of will. And to me, it is unfortunate because as a result of this, you still have hundreds of thousands, when you aggregate all the numbers, millions of people that are dying. And you have incompetent leaders at the head of nations that are plundering their country's resources instead of using them for the benefits of their country. So how do you want to be respected when that is the case? And to make matters worse, right? Let me give you guys another anecdote. As I was traveling this past few days, I actually met somebody from West Africa, the country of Burkina Faso. If you follow African news, you know that Burkina Faso has been undergoing a bit of a revolution, right? You have the president, who's Captain Ibrahim Traoré, who essentially did a coup, and then he formed an alliance with his neighbors of Niger, Mali. They decided to rebuff and expel from their nations foreign troops, foreign base to close foreign base from the US, from France, and so on. And so those countries have a very nationalistic view, and they're really all about Pan-Africanism, but also the awakening of Black people, Black nations taking control of their resources. So this person that I met was very, very disappointed by the DRC leadership. When I told him I was born in the Congo, the first thing he said is like, man, let me tell you, us folks in West Africa, we're so angry by the situation that is happening in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. We're so angry by what the leadership in that country is doing, by its incompetence. That's somebody from West Africa was telling me all that. And I couldn't disagree with those sentiments, because let's face it, we have a team that has been in place for 6 long years. The excuse that this is a conflict that has been ongoing for over 30 years is not an excuse. What have you done in the last 6 years to make this situation better? And there's really nothing. At the very least, have we utilized the country's resources? Because you can't tell me that in 6 years, right, billions of dollars have not been generated by that nation. They have. How is it that you have an army that's non-existent? You don't have the capacity. And as Ronny Jackson is highlighting here, it is essentially the far, far east instead of far, far west. Far, far east, it's like there's like total outlaws. So, I mean, it's just sad. It is very, very, very unfortunate when we see situations like that. And to make matters worse, the it was very humiliating, I would say, for many Africans when we started reading statements right after President Zelensky refused to sign the exclusive mineral deal during his visit in the White House. Remember, Zelensky, when there was that whole diplomatic fiasco when Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, was invited to the White House in a meeting that was announced as the signature of a mineral deal, right? He was supposed to sign a deal that would give exclusive right for rare earth minerals to the U.S., and then he would not get any security guarantee. And he refused to sign that, right? And that's when he went head to head against JD Vance, and then he was lambasted by President Trump. But that whole sentiment brought a bit of pride in many people to say, okay, it's good that he is not just laying down and bending over and giving his country's resources. But on the just right after that, you turn around and you have the DRC's president and his team issuing statement, pitching now the idea, going to the US and say, hey, you know what? We have minerals. You want minerals? Come. We will willingly give you this exclusive rights to a lot of mineral in our country, but with the help of providing peace. So minerals for peace, so to speak. And we saw that and it was like, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. This is not the time to bend over and just give everything. This is the time when you need to essentially ensure that you control your interests and you negotiate with equals when you have something that others need. But in this case, it was willingly given. And then so you have Ronny Jackson who comes, who was not, and also when the idea was pitched, as I said before, you have the president communication team saying that, oh, you know what, this was a special envoy that was sent to our country by Donald Trump, and then that's debunked. Just totally humiliating the DRC's presidency. But then, you know, the person who comes in and goes around your country now issues statements such as these, saying that there's a total failure of leadership in the country. So it is things like this that can be very very disconcerting and very annoying, very upsetting and disappointing when within Global PAC nations you have leaders that really do not understand what it takes to uplift their countries and mitigate some of the negative impact, the geopolitical influences and pressures, but are willingly allowing the situation to fester, provided they personally benefit. Because I can assure you that that president and his family and the surrounding, and there's a kleptocracy, there's the cronies that are benefiting financially from that situation. That is a given. And that is just really, really unfortunate. And that's just not for the DRC, unfortunately. You can look at many countries around the African continent. There's such a reality, and that just needs to change. All right, so as we're proceeding, let's move on to the third topic here, which is now Aliko Dangote, who will, I think, help us highlight the point we've been trying to make. You know, one of the pillars of the Global PAC, in case you do not know, our platform, our movement has three pillars, right? Pillar number one, Pan-African history, because we believe in highlighting history and bringing to the forefront the accomplishment history of the Global PAC, Global Pan African Community, so that we understand how we arrived to where we are today. And so we are able to design policies and strategies going forward by avoiding mistakes of the past. That's why pillar number one is history. We need to understand our history to know where we come from and understand where we're going. Our second pillar is political action. Because, I mean, you can cry all you want and speak and do all you want, but you need political organization if you really significantly want to change the societies in which we live. And so the third pillar is finances or economics, if you want. Because as I like to say, money talks and BS walks, right? He who has the gold rules. As we're currently seeing, Donald Trump can go around and do whatever he wants and say whatever he wants without any consequences, because this country is the most powerful financially speaking. So we need economic strength. And so on the remaining with the topic of economic strength, let's talk a bit about Aliko Dangote. So that's our third topic for today. Aliko Dangote, the richest black man in the world from Nigeria, created a refinery that at full capacity, could refine up to 650,000 barrels a day, making it one of the biggest refineries in the world. And his philosophy was simple when he created that refinery. The philosophy was simply that, look, Nigeria has a bunch of crude oil, a lot of crude oil reserves. It does not make sense that Nigeria would have the crude, ship the crude to different countries, and sell it for cheap. Have that same crude refined in other countries, and then comes back to Nigeria, and Nigeria pays for that refined product at a bigger premium when they have the resources. So based on that whole incongruity, Aliko Dangote decided to do something about it. He said, you know what? No, I will build a refinery so that we no longer have to export our crude somewhere else. We can refine it locally, which is called value addition. We can add value locally, and we can end up selling a finished product, which will sell more. So as a country, will make more money. That's just common sense. But also the locals will have access to this refined product at a more affordable cost. And this, by the way, should be the direction taken by all African countries that have all sort of natural resources. It's always a loss when you export raw material, because you essentially importing underemployment when you do that. Okay, that's what you do. It's instead of exporting raw products, you need to figure out a way to transform the products locally, so add value locally, so your finished product is clearly more expensive. It has more value, so that when you sell it, first of all, you bring in with more currencies and so on, but you end up making more money because you sell it for more, and then you create jobs, because the value addition process means you have more tasks that have to be done in country, so you employ more people. So fantastic idea by Aliko Dangote, even though, you know, we believe that fossil fuels in the long term need to we need to curb the use of fossil fuel. I mean, I'm a firm believer in that. One of my businesses, for those of you who know, it's about renewable energy. So I'm a firm believer in greening our energy consumption over time, so that we can reduce the impact of global climate. But nevertheless, fantastic idea by Aliko Dangote. But guess what? From the moment he decided to build that refinery, he started undergoing a lot of infights from within the government in Nigeria. Instead of standing with him, instead of helping this project come to fruition, ensuring that it is successful for not only great publicity for the country, but for tangible benefits, no. It was very difficult for Aliko Dangote. There's a lot of articles you can read about it. Where, for example, I mean, this is a refinery, so it needs crude oil. Well, the NNPC, which is a Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation company, which is a national company dealing with the oil industry in Nigeria, instead of guaranteeing crude reserves to Dangote, no, decided to continue selling the crude to multinationals, and they're trading, arms and so on. And as a result, Dangote still has to go out of his country and buy the same crude that comes from Nigeria. I mean, just I don't know if I'm making myself clear here. So you have a local, right? Dangote builds a refinery. The country has the crude oil, but the national company that handles that, instead of selling it directly to Dangote, prefers selling it to a multinational and its trading partners. Obviously, there's a lot of in-dealing happening, right? There's a lot of corruption there too. And so as a result, Dangote, as the refinery, has to go out, buy the crude at a premium. And there's an article where he said they end up buying barrels at like a $3 to $4 premium, so spending millions of dollars more when that could have been avoided if the same corrupted party understood the benefit for the country in the long term. But no, people look at their direct interest and end up not facilitating those transactions. Very, very unfortunate. So that is what is happening here with Dangote. So it's a big struggle, but I'm very happy to say. So I was reading an article, and you can find it online. This article is from this outlet called Billionaires Africa, .com, that essentially announced that Dangote finally, in the month of March, he was able to ship over 2 million barrels of jet fuel, so aviation fuel, the U.S. To the United States. So because there is a lot of issues within Nigeria, Dangote ended up expanding his footprint. So he started selling refined product to different countries around Africa, Ghana, and so on. And then he also ended up selling jet fuel to Saudi Arabia. So he had big shipments sent to Saudi Arabia. And so the latest, he just this past March shipped over 2 million barrels of jet fuel to the United States. So he is really expanding his global print. And to me, that's very encouraging. And I want to end the show very centrally, because as you know, if you follow us, that business is a big part of what we do. Ultimately, we want this platform to also be a platform that provides incentive, information, support to highlight businesses by Global PAC members. So business is key. He who has the gold rules, right? Money talks and BS walks. So we need to advance business. It's not always about ideology. It's not always about just talking policy, politics, complaining. No, it's about advancing, and we need to advance business. So business initiatives are critical if we want to achieve the mission of this platform, which is to build strong coalition and build bridges within the Global PAC, so that we change the narrative and we change the well-being of all Black people and all members of the Global PAC being the global Pan-African community. So people of African descent, obviously people in Africa, but also people outside of Africa, the global diaspora, African Americans, Caribbean, wherever you have people of African descent. But to do that, business is a critical component. So people like Aliko Dangote, regardless of all the critics you will hear, he may have had, some monopolies here and there, but he is a business titan, and we need more inspirations like that. We need more success stories when it comes to business, and the more we can have titans that can help create industries within Africa and within other countries in the Global PAC, in the Caribbean and so on, business magnets, right, that create jobs locally, that value add within countries in the Global PAC. The more we can do that, the more we'll be able to advocate and command respect. Respect is not something you just ask and will be given to you willingly. You have to grab it. You have to demand it. You have to command it. And when you have that economic force, you are respected. And the same applies for our communities within the United States of America. We need Black communities to become strong economically speaking. And that all needs to happen within coalition. But business is a key component if we want to reach our goals, right? And we want to ensure that the Global PAC reaches its full potential. I'm going to end up here for today. I want to thank every single one of you, as always, who support this platform, who listened. And before closing, let me finish with a quote. As you know, it is our tradition on this show to always finish by quoting somebody. And when we bring these quotes, as I like to remind you, we just don't adore people, we don't idolize people, but I have, many heroes that are within the global pack, but also that are not necessarily black. Humans are humans. I respect people that achieve a lot, but it's really about inspiring us. That's why I bring this quote, because this platform is not about just complaining. I like to think forward. It's about advancing. Either we give solutions, we give ideas, it's about advancing really. And so this quote, hopefully, are accomplishing that goal, which is to inspire us to do better. And so today's quote comes from Aliko Dangote. Since we've been talking about him, a lot, we've been talking about him during the show. Let me finish with a quote by Dangote. And so his quote says, "What I always say is that money doesn't have color. It doesn't matter whether you are from Africa or anywhere in the world, the color of money is the same." The color of money is the same. This quote to me made me laugh the first time I saw it. Yeah, the color of money is the same. And I want to clarify this. I don't want to transpire or come across of just being money hungry or anything like that. But the point, or at least the angle that I'm seeing in this quote, is more with regards to our mission of building coalition and building bridges. Look, man, it doesn't matter where you're from. For us members within the Global PAC, we need to get over our differences when it comes to business dealings, business association. Let's look at what we try to achieve rather than looking at where we're from. And I'm from the Caribbean, I'm from Africa, I'm African American, I'm from Latin America. No, Black folks, we have a lot in common, and we can achieve a lot by working together because we face a lot of similar constraints and similar issues, systems that are put in place before you and I were born, but still have a legacy impacts today. And to overcome those, it is important to work together. And when it comes to business, we can make money regardless. So whether you're from Africa, you're African American, from the Caribbean, let's look at unity. Let's work together, work in coalitions. And when we end up making the money, whether it's green for dollars, whether it's whatever color it is in whatever country you're from, let's come together and we can still accomplish and become economically viable together. I'm a firm believer in coalitions and partnerships. And we can work together regardless of our origins. And my goal is eventually, in some of the upcoming interviews that we'll do, is to get to a point where we can highlight members of the Global PAC that have succeeded in business by forming strong coalitions. All right, so I'm going to end up here for today. Thanks a lot again for tuning in. If you've not done so, just take a moment to please click the subscribe button. It only takes a second to subscribe and be part of this platform and help this platform grow. And so together, we can achieve the goals that we've set for ourselves in 2025. As I conclude, as I like to say, remember, we are a beautiful people. We are a capable people. We are a strong people. Don't let anybody convince you otherwise. More importantly, we are the Global PAC. So until next time, peace be with you. Asante sana, which means thank you very much in Swahili. And remember, we are the Global PAC. Thank you.